Beneath our feet, hundreds of meters down, lies an industry that shouldn't exist at all. In ordinary coal mines in Siberia, they find steel cylinders with perfect lathe threading. In the Urals, right out of the permafrost, they extract tiny tungsten springs that today are only made at secret aerospace plants. And in the depths of America, an iron pot drops out of a lump of coal, made of metal so pure that our industry only learned how to produce it quite recently. These objects do not fit into school textbooks, and we will begin with the oldest mystery, which time has locked tight inside a piece of fossil forest. Austria, Wolfsegg, 1885. At a local iron foundry, workers were breaking apart lumps of brown coal mined from the deep underground shafts of the Situation mine. Inside one of the coal blocks, they discovered a strange metallic object of regular shape. It entered the catalogs under the name of the Salzburg parallelopiped. The object, weighing 670 grams, had a deep incised groove along its perimeter and two convex sides. The most frightening part is the age of the geological layer. The brown coal in this region formed during the Tertiary period. That is more than 20 million years ago. A time when there were not even remote ancestors of humans on the planet. Official experts of the 19th century immediately declared the artifact a meteorite. The problem is that meteorites do not have a regular geometric shape with signs of mechanical milling. In 1966, the object was studied at the Vienna Museum of Natural History using an electron microscope. The analysis showed a complete absence of nickel in the metal. This completely rules out a cosmic origin. It is not a meteorite. But it is also not a piece of cast iron, as skeptics claimed. The alloy contains a high percentage of carbon and sulfur, which is characteristic of industrial casting using blast furnaces. How a product of heavy machinery ended up buried inside an ancient prehistoric forest, science still does not know. The process of preserving objects inside coal is a separate engineering puzzle. Miners working the seams repeatedly stated that this piece of coal had no external cracks or pores. The stone was monolithic. This means that the metallic object got in there at the moment when the future coal was still soft peat or living wood. 20 million years ago, an industrial machine was operating in a forest that was then buried under tons of sedimentary rock. The physics of this process rules out a hoax. 19th century miners simply did not possess the technology to manufacture such an alloy and embed it inside a solid piece of rock at a depth of 30 meters. The foundry documents recorded that the tool used to split the coal literally bounced off the metal hidden inside, emitting a clear, high-frequency ring. Let's move from Austria to the heart of Siberia. Kemerovo region, an open-pit coal mine, present day. A bucket wheel excavator stopped after a sharp impact against hard rock. At a depth of 40 meters inside an untouched seam of stone coal, workers discovered a perfect metallic cylinder with a screw thread on the end. The object weighed over 12 kilograms. It looked as if it had just been turned on a lathe. The age of the coal basin is 300 million years, the Carboniferous period, an era of giant ferns and amphibians. The local research institute conducted a spectral analysis of a chip from the surface. The results forced the professors to double-check the calibration of their instruments. The cylinder was cast from a complex composite alloy with a high content of tungsten and molybdenum. In modern industry, such materials are created exclusively by the method of powder metallurgy in vacuum furnaces. They are used for the production of rocket engine nozzles and the skin of spacecraft that withstand colossal thermal loads. When an attempt was made to make a deep cut with a diamond blade in the factory laboratory, the tool went blunt in a few seconds, and the cylinder itself did not heat up by a single degree. The material demonstrated absolute thermal conductivity. The authorities hastily confiscated the find, declaring it a component of lost Soviet equipment. But Soviet machinery cannot materialize inside monolithic seams that formed for millions of years without access to oxygen. The geological structure of the Kuzbass formed under conditions of extreme tectonic pressure. At a depth of 40 meters, the coal seams are compressed to the state of sub-anthracite. This means that any hollow structure inside it would be crushed. However, the titanium-tungsten cylinder withstood a pressure of hundreds of atmospheres. No signs of deformation were found on its surface. The circular cross-section is perfect to the nearest micron. The geometry of the thread pitch on the end of the cylinder indicates that this object was part of a larger industrial assembly. Perhaps it was the rod of a heavy hydraulic piston or a fastening element of a cyclopean underground structure. Engineers studying the reports note that microscopic longitudinal channels with a diameter of a few nanometers were discovered on the inside of the cylinder. These channels could serve for the circulation of cooling fluid under extreme pressure. Nature is not capable of creating a system of nanocapillary tubes inside a super-hard refractory alloy. This is a product of a mechanical engineering complex that surpasses all modern factories in its capabilities. The fact that the object was abandoned inside the coal seam speaks of a sudden evacuation or a large-scale catastrophe that stopped the operation of the ancient industrial center 300 million years ago. Northern Urals, Russia, 1991. On the Narada River, gold prospectors were washing soil at a depth of up to 12 meters. Instead of gold nuggets, thousands of microscopic metallic parts remained on the researchers' screens. Their size varied from 3 centimeters to 3/1000ths of a millimeter. The finds resembled spirals, rings, and complex technological springs. Archaeologists handed the samples over to the Institute of Geoplanetary Research in Moscow. The geological layer in which the parts lay dates back to the Upper Pleistocene epoch. Its age is at least 100,000 years. Scientists used high-definition electron microscopes. It turned out that the large spirals are made of pure copper, and the microscopic nanoparts consist of rare metals, tungsten and molybdenum. All the springs had a strictly identical thread pitch and a regular round cross-section. In our reality, tungsten filaments of this thickness are used in incandescent lamps and for creating military guidance systems. Nature is not capable of twisting tungsten into a regular geometric spiral of microscopic size. This requires nanotechnology and precision machine tools. Official reports recorded that the parts are not space debris, as the depth of their burial rules out the fall of modern satellites. 100,000 years ago, someone scattered millions of elements of high-precision electronics across the territory of wild Siberia. The scale of the Ural find is astonishing. Spirals were discovered over several years in the beds of the Narada, Kozhum, and Balbanyu rivers. This is a huge territory of hundreds of square kilometers. The parts lay in the very lowest layers of alluvial deposits, directly on the bedrock. This means that they got there long before the rivers formed their modern channels. The physics of the distribution of nanoparticles in the soil indicates that a powerful air explosion, or the destruction of a large technological object, occurred in the upper layers of the Earth's atmosphere 100,000 years ago. Electronics engineers brought in to analyze the structure of the Ural spirals state that these elements are completely identical to the components of modern microprocessors and spacecraft sensors. Tungsten has a melting point of over 3,400 degrees Celsius. Processing this metal and drawing it into a micron-thick wire requires the use of diamond dyes and a protective gas environment. Humanity only mastered these processes in the 20th century. Official science tried to silence the results of the examinations, calling the finds traces of tests of Soviet rockets at the Plesetsk test range. However, rocket debris cannot penetrate through 12 meters of compressed permafrost and end up in Pleistocene layers without disrupting the integrity of the soil. The small tungsten spirals remain mute evidence of a nano-industry of the past. USA, State of Oklahoma, 1912. Workers at a local power plant in Thomas were breaking large lumps of coal to feed the boiler furnaces. From the center of a massive piece of rock, a small iron pot of regular shape fell out. A worker named Frank Kenwood kept the artifact and recorded the testimony of witnesses under oath. The coal in which the pot was located was mined in the Wilburton mines. The age of this deposit is 302 million years. The iron pot had smooth walls, cast ears for hanging, and a solid base. An examination at the Institute of Oklahoma confirmed that a clear imprint from the walls of this vessel remained on the inner surface of the coal. This completely rules out the version that the object fell from above or got into the mine by accident. It was there at the moment of the formation of the coal itself. The alloy of the pot turned out to be pure iron, without impurities of phosphorus and sulfur. Modern metallurgy obtains such metal by electrolysis. The ancient reservoir stood in the dark for 302 million years. Inside it, X-rays discovered remnants of complex internal geometry. This was not a piece of kitchen utensil. It was a hermetic technological capsule, the purpose of which engineers cannot understand to this day. When metallurgists examined the Oklahoma pot, they faced the phenomenon of the absence of corrosion within the structure of the metal. Pure iron without chemical additives behaves like a noble metal. It does not react with oxygen and moisture. Exactly the same effect is recorded in the famous Delhi Pillar in India. This points to a single technological school that existed on the planet in prehistoric times. The shape of the pot has a strict distribution of wall thickness. The bottom of the vessel is twice as thick as its top edge. Such geometry is necessary for reservoirs operating under conditions of constant bottom heating or high internal pressure of liquid media. X-ray structural analysis revealed that the structure of the metal has traces of directional crystallization. This is a process in which a part is grown from a melt as a single crystal. Monocrystalline alloys are used today for the production of turbine blades for jet aircraft, as they possess absolute resistance to deformation under extreme mechanical loads. An ordinary worker, Frank Kenwood, in 1912, could not know these terms. He simply cracked coal and found an object that is generations ahead of 20th century metallurgy. The capsule from Oklahoma was part of a life support system, or a pressure sensor, in the depths of the ancient Earth. Let's move to the territory of South Africa, the Ottosdal mine. Here, for decades, miners have been extracting strange metallic spheres from layers of pyrophyllite. They received the name Klerksdorp spheres. Their diameter ranges from 1 to 10 centimeters. The age of the rock in which they are buried is 3 billion years. At this time, only the simplest unicellular algae existed on Earth. The spheres have a regular flattened shape, and 3 parallel grooves run along their equator. Conspiracy theorists immediately started talking about alien probes, but geologists from the Max Planck Institute conducted a detailed analysis of the structure. The spheres consist of hematite and pyrite. Skeptics claim that these are natural geological concretions formed in the process of weathering. But nature does not create perfect spheres with mathematically symmetric notches around an axis. Moreover, a study in a space laboratory in California revealed that the spheres possess a perfect balance. When placed in an isolated chamber, they slowly rotate around their own axis under the influence of micro-vibrations of the Earth. The internal structure of the spheres has a porous structure resembling spongy titanium. 3 billion years ago, an unknown architect created millions of perfect balancers and buried them in the planet's crust. A technical audit of the Klerksdorp spheres showed that their hardness on the Mohs scale exceeds the hardness of the host rock itself. Pyrophyllite is a soft mineral. It is easily cut with a knife. But the metallic spheres inside it cannot be scratched with a steel tool. Professors of metallurgy note that the composition of the sphere's shell is an alloy of iron with the addition of nickel and cobalt. In natural conditions on Earth, such a combination is found only in meteorite matter. However, meteorites do not fall underground in dense groups of millions of identical elements of regular shape with 3 parallel notches. These spheres played the role of ball bearings in cyclopean mechanisms, or served as elements of a giant gyroscope on a planetary scale. The rotation of the spheres inside an isolated chamber proves the presence of a residual static charge, or a unique internal balancing shifted relative to the geometric center by hundredths of a millimeter. Instruments recorded that when passing through the zone where these spheres are embedded, seismic waves from underground tremors begin to decay. The metallic spheres of Klerksdorp are an artificial dampening framework embedded into the Earth's crust 3 billion years ago to stabilize the tectonic activity of the young planet. State of Nevada, USA, 1922. In a deep canyon, geologist John Reed was conducting an inspection of fossilized rock formations. On one of the boulders, he discovered a clear imprint of the sole of a shoe. It was not the footprint of a bare foot. The contour of a leather boot with a clearly distinguishable double-stitched thread along the entire perimeter was imprinted on the stone. The age of the rock formation was 30 million years. This is the early Miocene epoch. The specimen was delivered to New York to leading paleontologists. The examination confirmed that the imprint is authentic and formed at a moment when the rock was soft clay. Under a microscope, scientists saw microscopic traces of skin peeling and symmetrical loops of twisted thread. The physics of the process rules out accidental coincidence or a play of nature. Someone wearing factory-made shoes was walking across the territory of the future America in an era when giant mammals ruled the planet. The imprint also recorded a trace of a heel repair, where the thickness of the sole was artificially increased. Science recognized the artifact as an inexplicable anomaly and hid it in the vaults of private collections. A detailed analysis of the track from Nevada revealed striking details. The distance between the stitches of the double seam was exactly 1 millimeter. The line of the seam went with a perfect radius of curvature in the toe zone of the boot. At the beginning of the 20th century, such stitching precision was achieved only in shoe factories using mechanical sewing machines of the Singer design. But 30 million years ago, there were no primates on Earth capable of holding a needle. Forensic experts who studied the footprint concluded that the weight of the creature that left the track was about 120 kilograms. This is the mass of an adult male in heavy protective gear. The pressure on the ground was distributed evenly, which is characteristic of the orthopedic sole of modern work boots. The right side of the heel had a characteristic wear, slanted by 3 degrees inward. The creature walking through the soft Miocene silt limped on its right leg, or carried a heavy load on its left shoulder. The Rock of Nevada recorded not just an accidental contour, it sealed a second from the life of a researcher or worker of the past who was performing his tasks in North America long before the first Native American tribes appeared there. The physics of fossilization preserved the structure of the twisted cotton thread, which turned into pure silica. Far East, Primordier, 1907. Miners, during the excavation of a deep ventilation drift, ran into a vertical metallic plate blocking the entire face. The object consisted of a gray matte metal that did not yield to steel pickaxes. Attempts to blast the obstacle with a small powder charge led to the rock around collapsing, but the plate itself remained undamaged. Not a single crack appeared on its surface. Engineers who arrived at the scene took measurements. The plate went into the bedrock granite at an angle of 45 degrees. Its thickness was exactly 40 centimeters. The surface was covered with a fine mesh of regular hexagonal cells resembling honeycombs. The size of each cell was verified to fractions of a millimeter. An analysis of the alloy conducted later in Vladivostok showed an incredible combination of chromium, nickel, and cobalt. This is a classic heat-resistant superalloy, which today is used in the construction of turbines for nuclear power plants and deep-sea submersibles. The miners simply bypassed the plate, digging a new tunnel. 3 years later, the mine was hastily closed due to a sudden breakthrough of groundwater, and all the blueprints of this horizon vanished from local archives. The metal wall still stands in complete darkness at a depth of half a kilometer. The structure of the Primordia plate indicates that it was an element of heavy fortification or protection for an underground reactor. Cobalt superalloys possess extreme radiation resistance. They are not activated and do not degrade under the constant flux of fast neutrons. Why a plate of material capable of withstanding a nuclear blast was needed deep underground in Primordier remains a question. The honeycomb structure of the surface is a brilliant engineering solution to reduce the total weight of the structure while maintaining maximum bending stiffness. Today, panels of this shape are used in aircraft construction and fairings for space rockets. A thickness of 40 centimeters of monolithic cobalt-nickel alloy is capable of withstanding a direct hit from a heavy-caliber artillery shell. The blueprints of the mine did not disappear by accident. Military departments of Tsarist Russia, and later special departments of the Soviet intelligence services, understood the value of the find perfectly. The mountain range of Primordia represents a tectonic shield of high stability. The embedding of metallic partitions there could have been part of a large-scale project to create deep underground bases or energy storage facilities millions of years ago. The plate goes down at an angle, repeating the trajectory of an ancient tectonic fault. It serves as a plug, blocking access to deeper horizons of the Earth where sensors record thermal anomalies. The final find brings us back to Europe. France, a limestone quarry in the hills of Provence. In 1786, workers at a depth of 15 meters dug up a layer of ancient stone. The limestone in this zone formed over millions of years. Under the next layer, the builders discovered an abandoned underground hall with an area of several dozen meters. On the floor lay fossilized tool handles, fragments of wooden boards, and coins made of an unknown gray alloy. But the most shocking part was the traces of work. An entire cliff face was cut in smooth horizontal layers. On the walls of the underground hall remained clear parallel grooves from the passage of a heavy mechanical cutter. The width of each step was exactly 30 centimeters. The architects of Provence recorded that the tools, whose wooden parts had turned into agate, completely correspond to mass production technologies. This was a factory abandoned millions of years ago. Stone was mined and cut here long before European civilization built its first cities. All the finds were handed over to the Academy of Sciences in Paris, where their trail was lost for good. The Archive Protocols of Provence from 1786 contain detailed descriptions of these finds. The hall, at a depth of 15 meters, had no signs of a karst cave. It was a room with a rectangular cross-section, the walls of which were processed in an industrial way. The fossilized boards had a thickness of 2 centimeters and traces of being sawn by a circular disc saw. On the pieces of wood, steel staples for fastening cables or hoses were preserved. The coins of gray alloy found on the floor, upon close inspection, turned out to be technological tokens or plugs for high-pressure valves. They had a round shape with a clear perforation in the center. Official French science at the end of the 18th century was too primitive to understand what they had dug up. Professors declared it a joke of nature, or traces of the work of ancient Roman quarries. But the Romans did not know how to work at a depth of 15 meters under a monolithic layer of limestone that builds up over millions of years. And they did not have mechanical cutters with a cut width of 30 centimeters. The grooves on the walls of the hall in Provence prove the use of heavy mining combines that cut the rock in single blocks for the needs of large-scale construction. The plant in the hills of France was abandoned in a single night due to a sharp tectonic shift that sealed the workshop under layers of lime mud. 8 artifacts. 8 hard facts from the deep layers of the earth. They are scattered across different continents, buried in different geological eras, but they are united by one thing. They prove that the history of our planet goes in circles. We are used to considering ourselves the pinnacle of evolution. We are proud of lasers, processors, and space stations. But looking at the tungsten spirals aged 100,000 years and the titanium cylinders from the Carboniferous period, we understand an uncomfortable truth. All our technologies are merely a repetition of what was already created, used, and forgotten millions of years ago. We are not the first to build factories on this planet, and perhaps not the last whose traces the engineers of the future will find at the bottom of another coal pit. The real mystery is not how these objects got underground, but why, with the stubbornness of the doomed, we continue to believe in linear progress, ignoring tons of steel and tungsten buried right beneath our cities. The spiral of history is making another turn, and the old factories in the depths of the mines are just waiting for those who can read their blueprints. Write in the comments which of these 8 artifacts seemed the most incredible to you and why. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon so you don't miss new investigations. We upload regularly. See you next time.